Hi, can you hear me?
I am not. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. So we on now. Praise the Lord. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sending in the text. I mute myself by mistake. Amen. Yes. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about corporal punishment. We want to know what you think about corporal punishment. Should a parents be allowed to spank their children? So, to spank or not to spank, do you believe that a parent should be allowed to spank their kids? What are your thoughts on corporal punishment as a method of child discipline? Do you think that spanking is appropriate and effective way to correct our undesirable behavior? As first parents, as first time parents, we want to be certain that we are doing what is best for our children. So many of us have many questions. I mean, from home to home, from state to state, this question, this in terms of discipline or corporal punishment, have been discussed all over the globe, and it has also been discussed in about 50 states. I think about 30 of them abandon corporal punishment, and we have 19 that practices corporal punishment. And so I want to talk to you. I want to hear from you because many of you, you know, many of you are afraid to discipline your children. You are afraid. You don't want to get involved in that type of stuff, and so as a result of that, it's very crazy in your home, and so you don't want to touch a kid because you don't want to go to jail. So we have a counselor. We have a very powerful woman of God that is live and direct here, Dr. Yvonne Bennett. Amen. She's a marriage counselor, a family counselor. I should say. I don't want to just do marriage because she counsel everyone. Um, I'm a clinical therapist, and also we have Lady V. She's also a teacher in the school system, and I was listening to the kids on during the course of the school year on the virtual, and I mean, teachers have patience. You really have to have patience as a teacher, and just to see how they're juggling from the classroom and also dealing with those that is on the virtual. And like today, the teacher was really losing it. And so, Dr. Bennett, my question to you would be: do you believe that in corporal punishment, and is it necessary to be able to use that method as a form of discipline versus timeout and those things?
Well, greetings to you, Pastor Paul and Lady V. Um, when it comes to corporal punishment, it sounds like, "Ugh, we're gonna beat this kid." you know, um, when you're disciplining a child with your hand, spanking them, or with a belt, it builds up anger in the parent because you're already upset at what this child has done. So, I mean, there's a misinterpretation of a scripture that we've read for years and years and years. Uh, Spare the rod and spoil the child, or the rod of correction will drive out foolishness. Think about it for a moment. When the one of the tools that a shepherd uses is he uses a rod. Yes, he does use a crook, but he only uses the crook to guide them back. And the same with the rod. I feel that especially in this day and time, because you don't want your child to become defiant and angry and build up a lot of, because you can spank a child for everything that they do, and after a while it'll be okay. Come on, let me have it. They can become immune to spankings. So I think timeout and the proper punishment, taking things away from them, and especially after they get a certain age. Now, when they're younger, you have to teach them. I taught my children, I'm not going to move that because I'm going to teach you not to touch that, and you have to keep reiterating and reiterating. But I'm not one of those people that say that you should be able to spank a child. You don't know how that's going to affect that child later on in life. They can become very defiant. They can become very hateful. They can become a lot of things, a lot of negative things from just because children don't take it as a spanking. It takes it. Some children take it, because I listen to children when they say to me in counseling, "My mother used to beat me all the time." Beat me? Oh, that sounds so cruel. Beat me. To me, that's taking advantage of a child because they can't beat you back. So, I'm a firm believer in disciplining a child in many other ways.
Okay, so we want to hear from you. 973-272-4200. 973-272-4200. Do you believe in corporal punishment, or do you believe in spanking your kids? Amen. Do you believe in spanking your kids? And if so, tell me why or why not. Lady V, what is your opinion on corporal punishment?
Um, I believe that corporal punishment is definitely in order. But I want to say that I learned as a mom, and especially raising four children, that there is a way that you discipline your children, and you want to make sure that when you're disciplining, you're in control. Because there can be times where we spank our children in anger, and we don't want the children to feel like we're angry, so we're out of control, and that's why we're spanking them. So I would say that yes, I do believe in spanking children, but I believe more in trying to talk to them and redirect their behavior. And if I cannot redirect your behavior, then I'm going to explain to you why I'm going to spank you, so that you will understand that this is why you're going to get a spanking. And I don't believe that we should threaten a spanking and not follow through with it. So when you tell your child, I'm going to spank you,
You got
Yeah,
to
do
follow.
and
it.
if you don't spank them,
Right.
then you now lied to your child. So
Right.
if you say, okay, we're going to go to the store, and if you misbehave, these are the consequences. I'm going to spank you, and you don't follow through with it, then it means nothing to them. But if they know that this is the consequence to this, then they understand when you get home, not in the store, not because now we are setting ourselves up. So we have to make sure that we remain calm. And even if you have to stop what you're doing and take your child to the car, take them home, or take them in a private place, that you are keeping yourself disciplined. You can't allow their behavior to take you out of character. And then you take them and you spank them, and then now you resume whatever you need to do. I just think that there's a time and place for everything, though. I just don't think that we should just spank our child just because.
Because of spanking sake.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think everything warrants a spanking. But I will say this, not contradicting what I said. If you are going to spank a child, you really need to know how to spank a child.
Mhm.
You spank a child in anger, you're going to put bruises on this child. I mean, is that what we want to do? I don't think so. The purpose, what is the purpose of spanking? The purpose of spanking is to have this child feel some pain for what you've done. That's the purpose. But do we want to put bruises on the child? How can you spank a child without bruising them? How can you spank a child without putting a bruise on them? And I don't believe in smacking a child in the face. That's not a spanking. No, we don't do that. If you're going to spank a child, how do you spank a child without bruising them?
I think that that's where the control comes in, and you should spank them on their bottom. I think that the safest place to spank a child is on their behind, because when you start hitting them on their arm, their leg, and you don't have control over them, you can also hurt them. And that is
Right.
not the intentions of spanking. The intentions of spanking is so that you understand what you did is wrong. I'm correcting your behavior, but I'm also in control. So when you're spanking them, it should not be that you're just swinging, because if they're moving and you're swinging, you can hurt them. So you have to have the control that I'm going to spank you. You're going to bend over. I'm going to spank your behind. And that's going to be the place that it hits. Now,
So,
if that,
so what if sometime in spanking the kids, sometimes they put up the ends, they black, sometimes
They do.
they go for
but
sometimes
they
the
can't,
wrong way and they get it in the wrong place.
they can't put their hands up if they are in position. If they are bending, and you have the control as the parent. So when you're spanking them, I mean, when I was growing up, we had paddles. But when you're swinging, you're spanking their behind. You're aiming at their behind, and they're not moving. They're in a position where they cannot swing and run and do all of those things, because that's where now the bruises come in. And then we're also, as parents, setting ourselves up,
Yep.
because once somebody sees it, or someone, they go to school, now it is considered
Abuse.
borderline abuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, right? When I was growing up, my uncle, used to spank us. The boys, he would spank on the butt, and the girls, he would hit in the hands. But also, my mom, well, wherever it catch you, that's where it catch you, right? So let me give my opinion concerning corporal punishment. I'm from the Caribbean, and so my mindset, my way of thinking, as it relates to discipline, is different. There's abuse, and then there is discipline, right? So, and we gotta differentiate the difference between the two: abuse and discipline, because one thing about scripture, I like the scriptures, because the scripture is there for a purpose. It's there for a manual. It's there for a guide. And all through scriptures, the Bible in talk about the one in Proverbs chapter 13 verse 24, whosoever spirit or what, the Bible said, you ate your son, ate his son, but he who love him is diligent to discipline him. Back in biblical time, when the children were disobedient, when the parents tried to correct them and the parents tried to discipline them, if they were not listening, they would put them in the street corner and stone them to death. They would take them to the elders, and the
Mm.
elders would stone them to death. That's how God really feel concerning us being disobedient or not following instruction. But what am I saying? We have situation whereby some people believe in discipline and some people believe in putting time out. The kids that are not disciplined, I have seen that they are very unruly. A lot of these kids that we try to be so nice. Oh, go in the corner, Jimmy or Tommy, like we try to be so unruly outside. First of all, they're disrespectful to the parents, right? They slam in the door on the parents. They and go on time out, and they're telling you come out the bedroom, and we have seen where discipline is not, where people have not been disciplined properly, not being spanked, I should say, right? Whereby
Mhm.
they are they can be very, very unruly. And even though there is an effect, I learned psychologically, there can be an effect. But I've known a lot of people, including myself, that have been disciplined when I was younger. I mean, I believe I was abused. My mom was when she gave you a whooping, that was abuse.
Mine too. Mm,
You come to think about it now, that slavery
mm,
mentality, that was abuse, right?
mm,
But I grew up fine. There was no psychological issues. I just learned a different way. When I grew up, I talk and I spank sometimes. I talk, but you don't just beat, right? You want to spend, sometimes you beat, sometimes you talk. As I grow older, I would give them 3 to 4 hours talking. I just talk them to death. As I become when I become a pastor, I just preach to them. I talk,
mm,
and I think that's worse than just they might just say, you know what, just give me a spanking and get it over with,
mm, mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because I spend so much time just talking. With that being said, I believe that the Bible says foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction is going to drive it far away from them. There's a time to talk, and there's a time when you have to apply what we call corporal punishment. You have to spank them. Now, you should not be beating your kids with machine cards, where some of us used to get beat with.
Mm.
We should not be beaten with pot spoon and pots and frying pans
Switches.
and broomsticks and all those
Mm,
crazy stuff. I This is me growing up now, and I still believe in corporal punishment. Um, a couple of years ago, my best friend, I mean, he whooped his daughter so bad that it burst up a butt. A butt
mm,
began to bleed and all that stuff like that, and I became so enraged. I become very enraged, and I get the law involved. Right, my best friend that messed up our entire relationship. But I got the law involved because I thought it was, first of all, to be, she's a female, first thing first, and then to get a beaten to that extent where you're bleeding that way by the man that's supposed to protect you, it was one of those things that really get to me. And so I get the law involved, and I was able to get it the child out of the house and stuff like that. It wasn't my intention, right? But then you did something that was foolish, and I think it was necessary to do something like that. So for those of you that are listening out there, right? Um, do you believe in corporal punishment? Do you believe, to what extent do you want to go as it come to the children? Do you want to leave marks on their skin? Do you want the mouth to be bleeding? All the stuff that some of us that have experienced certain things as children, especially those of you coming from Africa and coming from the Caribbean. I mean, we've been abused, right? But it didn't kill us. A lot of us didn't turn out not to. My mother had 5 kids. She raised 5 kids by herself, and none of us end up in jail. None of us, we grew up to be pretty good, and we had a whooping. So, to that, Dr. Yvonne, let's talk about you was talking about some of them can grow up to be rebellious.
mm.
Talk to me a little bit.
Well, on the line that you're speaking about abuse, my mom was abusive, very abusive. Um, you once again, if you're going to spank a child, it has to be a time when, first of all, you're not so angry at what the child has done until you're taking it out on the child, because it can turn into abuse. There's a correct way to do everything. And now let's talk about the legal legalities of it. Okay. That's what I'm speaking from. Legally speaking, and I had an experience with my son. I was in the shopping center, and Lamont was about 8 years old, 8 or 9, and he was running in the uh, in the store, looking up underneath the ladies' room as they were trying on their clothes. And I said, Lamont, you cannot do that. And all I did was take off my belt, and I said, Lamont, that's not good, shaking the belt. I never even beat him with a belt. I said, naughty, 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 that's not nice. And he just started screaming. Just so happened that at that time, there was a social worker in that learner's store, and she called security. Next thing I know, I am in the security's office. And the security said to me, this child is so frightened. This lady witnessed it, that he was so frightened that you beat this child. I said, I didn't even touch the child. So in the meantime, they targeted my life. They were able to get my license plate. Before I got home, they let me go. But before I got home, the people were at my door from Division of Youth and Family Services. And they said to me, ma'am, you are not allowed to spank this child with a belt. You are not allowed to spank this child with any object. I said, but I didn't even do that. I said, I was just doing it so he could stop doing what, shaking the belt. And they told me that I had to sign an agreement that I would never spank this child again with an object. With an object. They said, if you're going to spank this child, you have to tap him on his bottom with your hand. So how many parents think of that? Most parents think switch, belt, whatever they can get their hands on. And then to me, that becomes abusive, because you're going to leave marks on that child. You don't want to leave marks on your child. And even spanking a child with your hand, I think you can spank a child with your hand where they can feel it enough where you do not leave bruises. But I was in a very, very terrible situation, and I hadn't done a thing. But the law stepped in, and they told me not ever with an object, not ever.
Dr. Yvonne, with my experience, having 10 kids, right? I have 10 kids. And which mean at some point in time, we diverse had to pass through the house, because you got to keep a rein on your children.
Yes.
Whether by whatever means necessary, especially when you have boys. And like my eldest son, he tried to test me, right? He really tried to test me, and I was not afraid of the police, because they didn't make my kid. None of them make my kid, and I was not afraid of the cops. Every time they come and they show up to my door, I tell them, GD, you're going to take me or you're going to take my child.
Yes.
You take me or take the child, but whatever it is, he's going to follow every rule in the house. He's going to follow the rules in the house, and he's going to do what I tell him to do. And that's just the bottom line. I'm thinking we're living in a culture that we have, like, for instance, in biblical terms, we have theocracy, and then we have bureaucracy. We living in a culture whereby we give our kids too much rein, right? We give them what we call a liberal household, whereby they have too much opinion, right? And they even think that they are in the same bracket with you, like they are in control of stuff. They want to close the door, they want to do this, they want to do that, and so raising my children, there's somebody telling me what to do and what not to do. So when social workers show up, one time I was disciplining my eldest son, and they told me, well, you're like about 16, 17 by now. And you know what these people do to our sons when they get into trouble, when the cops got to arrest them and they got to do certain things. They like, we see they kill them, they beat them up, and the same social worker that is telling you don't beat the kids, they're the most abusive.
Right.
They're more than the most abusive set of people.
Right.
These same people that tell you not to discipline them, now you leave them alone to do what they want to do, only to be abused and misused by the system. So I promise my son, you will never go to jail, and to God be the glory. So far, so far, so great. You're not going to be going to jail. You know, grab my mother used to tell me, I bring you into the world, I'm going to take you out. So, I mean, I don't know if this is psychologically sound or if we should say certain things to them. But what I do know, my mother just had to look at me
Yeah.
and give me the eyes, and the eyes was good enough for me.
Yeah.
I know what the eyes mean, like
Yeah.
and I know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So with our children, we apply some of the same principles. Some of the kids, you can talk to them and they're fine,
Mhm.
right? They're fine. They don't give you no challenge. They listen and whatever. And some of the other kids, they want to challenge you, and those that challenge you because I make you an example. Whatever the example is, I can remember my son turned 17 or 18, and this guy he rise up in front of me like he want to beat me,
Mhm.
right? He want to beat me, and that day I had to make an example out of him. I'm like, no, 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 no,
Right.
you know. So I believe I don't believe in abuse, like leaving all these marks on your skin or hitting you with a frying pan or beating you with a broomstick in your head.
Mm-mm.
You know. But we get a spanking. One day I was I don't know what I did, but I was screaming to the top of my voice, and my mom gave me one broomstick in the middle of my head.
Yeah.
Right, and that cry, my vocal just went out just like that. And and my mom loves us, she care about us, but I'm thinking, you said sometime in the past, earth people, right?
Mhm.
Earth people, and coming on from that slave mentality, we do things, being beaten and being abused and misusing. I think we bring that same level of abuse. You can discipline the child, but don't abuse them. You don't have to leave marks all over the skin. You
Yeah.
don't have to you don't have to burst up his skin. I mean, I got marks to take me to my grave from different from different situation. But I thank God for some of the whooping. Actually, I literally thank God for some of the whooping, because I don't know what would have become of me. What are some of the things I would have done had I not been disciplined? And so, but those I've seen, like my one of my siblings, they vow, I'm not gonna do this to my child. I'm not gonna do that to my child because of how strict my mother was. But guess what? They're more rebellious.
Mhm.
Though, the,
Well, I think that they're more rebellious because there's not, see, when we don't understand the purpose of discipline is not to so much control or to cause them to fear, more so than it's training them, children, to respect.
mm,
And the problem that we're having now is we're afraid to discipline our children. So what happens is, in the bigger picture, when they go out and now the police tells them to do something, they don't have a respect
mm,
for the law. And now the same law that tells us that we can't spank them, they want to beat them.
Right.
So we have to, it really is a bad system set up for parents now, because they don't want us to hit our children, but they can hit our children. You
Right.
know, I can remember the same thing. My daughter had gone to school, and she had said that, I cut her hair and took her fingernails off. Well, I was having problems because, I wanted her to be cute, but she was going to school acting out. So I said, well, apparently you look too cute, and the cuteness is causing you to forget, what you're supposed to be doing in school. So, she child services came to the house, and they questioned the children, and all the children said I spanked them, and now they want to get involved. So the lady from child services said, well, we're going to be coming to your house every week to check on your home. Now, for me, you're not going to come to my house every week and check on my home, because my children are not being abused. So what I did was, when she came to the house, there was 4 suitcases per child at the door.
Mhm.
And she said, oh, well, are we taking a trip? I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. They're going with you.
Mhm.
Because here's the thing, if you're going to tell me I cannot discipline my children, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you take my children and you raise my children, and you guarantee me that you're going to be successful at it, that they're not going to be out there on the street. They're not going to be robbing people and killing people. that's what we're going to do. Because if you don't set a standard and stand for something as a parent, then your children are going to take over you. So
Right.
there has to be a voice that they understand. Now, when I was growing up, all my mom had to do it was look at me. I knew that Dr. Bennett didn't play. So when she looked at me, that was it. That was always the look of death. It was like, oh my God, she looked at me. I don't care if I was in church or I couldn't slouch in church if my dad saw me sleeping or whatever. All they had to do was look at me. I was the child that you could look at me and I'm good, because I didn't like spankings. But you have those children, you can't just look at them.
They look back at you.
Well,
There used to be a saying, and I don't know where that saying came from, but they used to say, "You don't believe lard is greasy." It's like, where did you get that from? But that's what they used to say. But you have some children, you have to spank them
yeah.
in order for them to understand that you mean what you say.
Well,
So
well, raising my son at the end of that story was they wanted me to sign the paper, and of course I did not sign a paper. I said to them, if you don't want me to spank him, if you don't want me to discipline him, then you take him. And the man just immediately went out the door. But let's talk about why we have to end up spanking some of these children. Not all, but some. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he gets older, he won't depart from it. In this day and time, let's not talk about times past, because I'm like you, Pastor Paul, Tito. I was abused. My mother would come behind you and short jab you in the back of your back. She would take your head and bang it upside the wall. That is not discipline. That's abuse. She kicked my brother in the groin once, and he jumped 3 stories down in the yard. He could have killed himself. That is abuse. You have to know yourself. If you're an angry person, and just like I said before, in times past, hurt people hurt people. Sometimes a child didn't deserve to have that spanking, and because you're so filled with anger, I'm going to give it to this kid. But you can't do that, and you shouldn't do that. But children have to be trained. Now, there's an exception to every rule. But what I'm seeing in this day and time, yes, these children, most of them today, need a spanking. Why? Because parents let them get away with too much from the beginning. You do not ever get a chance to tell me no. I was just in a graduation today, and this little child is 4 years old, and his mother told him, come over here. No. We don't say that. No. So if you allow a child to come up saying no and all these things against, being against the parent, like they're ruling the house, like they're going out to work and provide for you, then yes, you will have to end up spanking some of these children. So Yvonne is right. Lady V is right. See, I wasn't a spanker. I could look at Yvonne. I could look at Raquel. I could look at Lamont. I mean, I wasn't one of those spanking parents, because I didn't allow my children to bully me. If I told you to do something, you're going to do it. And guess what? I only told you one time.
And like my youngest son, TJ, my TJ, my junior. I mean, TJ, I mean, all the other kids fine, but TJ is, TJ had more like my personality. TJ is this strong-headed kid. He look at you. You can give him the eyes, and he give you back the eyes, and he might ask you what, right? Like one time he said, "Daddy, he's 4 years old. Daddy, I'm not afraid of you." I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't want, but the kids now, they're being raised with more and more attitude. They have more attitude, and so what I've learned over the years, because I have evolved. When I marry my current wife, she is a disciplinarian, but also she believe in talking, right? A lot of talking. Prior to, I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to go through this long drawn out talking. Like but I never used to beat often. But I used to be like the put it in the bank type of whooping. Like okay, so I'm gonna talk because I love to give speeches. I would talk and tell you who you are and who you're not and blah 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 blah. And I would go through long, drawn out, you know, long drawn out a speech. And then when I really get frustrated, because is when the teacher called, right? And they keep calling you, they keep calling you, they keep calling you, and then you apply that whooping, and then they come to your house to tell you, you know, well, you should not have whooped him and stuff like that, and the system is frustrating the parents because it's trying to take it try to take the control that the parents should have over the children and the ability to be able to guide them and to lead them and to instruct them. The system seem to want to destroy that. And so, what am I saying? Well, the Bible said, "Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with a rod, you will save his soul from Shiloh." Right? There's a story of a woman. Her son was bad, very bad, and she refused to discipline a young man. Refuse to discipline him. And so one day he got himself in trouble, and he was about to, he was about to go to jail. And so he said, "Mommy, can I say something to you?" And she bent over her head to talk to her. And when she did, he bite her ears off. He said this.
Mm.
He said this is. He said you should have. When I was doing all the bad things, you never say not. You never tried to guide me. You never tried to lead me and tell me I was doing the wrong thing. And so this is for that. And so let me say something. Kids love people that apply discipline. What they don't like is abusers. But
Yes.
they like when you can guide them and
Yes.
give them discipline. As I tell people all the time, sometimes when they hear I have 10 kids, oh my gosh, your house may be full of problems. I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
maybe these kids are unruly. Oh no. When
Mm-hmm.
my kids walk through the door, people always say good things about them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They always say, oh my God, they're so manly, they're so this, they're so that, and whatever. You can come into my house right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of kids. You're not hearing any song, right? And so we discipline, we have meetings, we talk about life, we not only discipline, but we talk, sit down and talk, and sometimes we give them a voice. I mean, I had to learn, I evolve in that. We give them a voice. Hey, you can, where you can air your grievance once in a blue moon. You can, if you have a problem with the parents, you can say this is your time to say whatever you have to say. And we're gonna listen. I don't know if something's gonna change sometime, but we can give you a listening ears. But going back to what we're saying, I know what the system is saying, but then we have to discipline our children. We have to teach them manners. That's why the community is the way it is. That's why the environment is the way it is. That's why the school system is the way it is. It is because we're not able to apply the discipline that we need to discipline our children. Keep in mind, I keep saying discipline and not abuse, because that's something that is totally different. I mean, some kids can really get you on your nerve. And so, Dr. Yvonne, do you think people should beat the kids when they're upset?
No, no, absolutely not. I
Mm-mm.
think I think when that's what I'm saying from the beginning, and most parents do that. You're already upset, and a lot of times you're upset about what the child did, but some of the things that the child has done could have been eliminated if you had taken the time with that child. Some children want, believe it or not, they want to be put on straight street. They really do, but they want it in love. And there's a
Mhm.
way that you do things. Uh, I would listen, if you have gotten to this point, or gotten to a point where you need to spank a child, you need to make sure you're not angry, and you need to tell that child. Lady V said it earlier. If you say you're going to spank him, do it, but you don't have to do it right then and there. I need to think a moment. I need to talk to you, and then I'm going to take the next step. But we are going to come together in a little bit, and you take that time. But I think the whole thing in a nutshell is take the time with the child prior to. And I celebrate you, Pastor Tito, having the type of children that you have. I know my children. My son is 38 years old, going to be 39. I know if someone came and said to me that Lamont robbed a bank, I would say you're lying. Because all I would have to do is go to Lamont and say, Lamont, did you rob the bank? He would say, no, I would believe him. Lady V is the same way. I've never ever caught my children in a lie. My children did not lie because they knew, number one, I would know the difference. So when you train your children up like that, so you can get them to know that you know what they will do versus what they won't do. A lot of times spanking is not necessary. You can punish them in another way. But yes, if you this day and time, a lot of children, they've gotten away with so much. I like that story you told about the young man that went to prison. A lot of young people are in prison, especially the men, because they didn't have the discipline at home. They did not. So now the police and the wardens are beating the fool out of them. So it's, train up a child right now. Take the time to train your children and love them. Love conquers all. And let them know, I'm the parent, you're the child, but I'm here not to take over, not to take control, but I'm here to teach you and train you so that you will know how to bring your children up.
But I think that also we can't discipline our children and tell them it was a saying that do as I say, not as I do. We have a responsibility to also model for our children what we want them to look like. And when we are out of control, which many parents are, and working many years in the school system, it's kind of hard to discipline your child when you're not disciplining yourself.
That's
So
right.
the key thing is you have to show discipline. If you're cussing, how can you tell your child not to cuss? And then you're going to beat them for cussing, but they get the cussing from you. If you throw things, then you can't beat them because you don't want them to throw things because they're watching you. So you have to make sure also that you are not modeling poor behavior in front of your children. And now you want to discipline them and you want to correct them. Then the discipline, it starts at home. How you are at home, you should be training your children at home so that when they go out, they do not bring you to an open shame. So when I would go out and I would tell my children, okay, we're going to the store, it's 4 of them. You're in charge of this one and you're in charge of that one. And we're not going to touch and we're not going to yell and we're not going to fight. I already prepped them before we went out to let them know, okay, what are we going to do when we go out, and make them repeat it so you know that they understand. Because you have to make sure also that children, especially when they're small, because I see a lot of parents beating their small children, 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. You don't even know if they understand what they're getting a beating for or a spanking for. So you're just spanking them just because you're spanking them. No, when they're that young, you need to make sure that they understand, why am I spanking you? Because and then if you're not going to handle them right then and there, it's really pointless with small children. Because if your 3-year-old did something in school and you waited for them to come home 2, 3, 4 hours later, why are you spanking them? They don't even know why you're spanking them. So you have to make sure that children understand why. And you have to ask them to repeat what it is that you want them to do. There's just too many. I see too many parents in the store. They're slapping their kids. They're yelling. They're cussing at them. That is incorrect ways of yeah. When I see parents cussing their kids out, I have a problem with the parent, not with the child.
Yeah.
It's the parent. You should not cuss your child out, nor call them names or smack them upside their head, and in any of those things. And that's what causes children to have worse behavior than they already and you already anticipate.
And I think that's what bring the when kids are being abused, that's what bring the psychological issue.
That's right.
When they're
Yes.
being abused. But when they're being disciplined, one time, Mr. Emmanuel, my eldest, my favorite, I love him a lot. One time, we went on the road, and for whatever reason, this young man decided to throw himself down on the subway, and he began to scream. Oh my gosh, he began to scream. Man, I put one lash in Emmanuel. He jump up fast. That was the end of that. He never embarrassed me again out on the out on the road. And so when kids, this is what I normally say: if you want to act a fool in public, I'm going to give it to you in public. Sometimes I show up at the school. I mean, I do some crazy things because if you want to act crazy, well, and sometimes just to show them, like, you want to embarrass me, well, I'm going to embarrass you. I pop up at the school. I do a lot of pop ups. I pull up in my car on the
Mhm.
street and they walking home and hey, I call out their names and like, cause and sometimes you get to see them because sometimes you're just driving to see how they're going, how they're interacting with their friends, and because kids has two personalities. There's one when they're with their friends, and they have one when they home. They're sweet and nice. I always tell people, if my mother only knows some of the things that I do, her mouth would drop. I did some stuff, but she never know because I was this nice little sweet Tito. And but away from home, I did my own thing. But I like what you were saying earlier, Lady V, conducting oneself and being an example to your children. I
Mhm.
um, I was looking at a clip on YouTube one day, and this young lady was saying, "Hey, how do you think I learned to cuss? How do you
Mhm.
think I dress this way, or I do this and I do that?" And she said, "Well, I had to learn it from somewhere. So most behaviors are learned behaviors, and so when we see our children acting a certain way, not all the time, but sometimes, we need to look ourselves in the mirror. Are we setting an example, right? Are we setting an example to them? One of the I believe a happy home bring great discipline, right? And I learned to love my wife first thing first. So let my kids see me hugging and playing and like us sketching play we saying guy, like to laughing and dancing. We don't even have music, but we dance and we spend time together. We let them see that. And so even to when they say, oh, and doing all that, that's something that is seeing. And so when you see love and love is being given to you, then you act differently, right? You kind of want to be abusing your wife and talking down your husband and being disrespectful, and then you expect to have what we call respectful children. So I really do appreciate what you said there about us as parents. We need to lead by example. It's not do as I say as I do, do as say as I do, but not as whatever it is, right? Do as I
And we
say, not
also
as I.
want, can I just add, we also need to watch what we are allowing our children to watch on TV, because the greater influence of the youth today is the stuff that they're watching on television. When the children are looking at children tell their parents off and they're hitting their parents and they're cussing at their parents, to me, there's not enough monitoring in households where parents are not even aware of what their children are watching, and then we don't realize. Now you let your child watch something on TV or YouTube or social media, which children shouldn't be on, but they're on there. And now they go to school and they mimic what they see, and then we want to beat them. We want to spank them. No, you have a responsibility as a parent to monitor what they're watching, what they're listening to, how much cell phone time they have. I mean, again, I think I said last week, I was the worst parent in the world because my kids, I wouldn't let them watch things like Martin and all of the prime time shows because I didn't want them to pick up the bad habits. And let's talk about the music. If you don't want them to act out, if you don't want them to do things, then stop, listen to what they're listening to. Because there's a lot of negative messages in the music today that promotes violence, that again, you're letting them listen to cuss words and now they're cussing. So it's so many things that create the behaviors, but then we want to beat them, but we're not doing our part as the parents to keep them from doing what they're doing and knowing who their friends are. Children pick up everything from their friends when they're at school. I have heard children as young as I stopped saying don't use cuss words. I was like, can we just not cuss before 10 o'clock? Because I couldn't believe how many children cussed. I
Mhm.
was like, but then when I would call their parent And the parent would come up to the school and they would cuss their child out. I'm like, okay, well, I see why the children cuss. So if you don't want your children to do these things, you have to monitor their behavior and you have to model for them. You just can't beat them because they're acting out, because they're getting these behaviors from somewhere.
Well, and it goes back to training up a child in the way they should go. And when they get old, they won't depart from it. Before a parent spanks a child and they are not doing what they're supposed to do in the home, they're living just any kind of way, they're allowing their children to watch anything, they're allowing their daughters and sons to dress any kind of way. You need to, before you spank that child, do they really merit this? Do they deserve this? Or did I create this monster? They need to ask themselves that question, because no home is perfect. Every home has some dysfunction. But when it comes to living the way you're supposed to live in the home, like Pastor Tito said, husband and wives, your children should see you embrace. Your children should see you joy, like being joyful. Like Lady D said, you can't allow your children to watch anything because you want them out of your hair. No, you can't do that. You have to live the life in front of your children that you want them to live after.
That's right.
And the TV, and the funny thing is, many people have been using television as a means of, babysitting. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to your program earlier, Dr. Yvonne, and and one of the things I just lose my train of thought there, but I believe as parents, right? As parents, we have to set the example. We have to set the tone. We have to we have to take our children to church. I think that's what make a big difference. Introduce them to God. Have a devotion. Have a devotion in the home. I think when it's all said and done with the discipline and all the other stuff that we're talking about right now, I'm thinking one of the things that make a difference is God. You know, introducing our children to God and teaching them the Word of God. I think that make a big difference in some of their. But then one of the biggest influence out there is not the parents. The truth be told, the kids spend more time with their friends at school, and they spend more time with them. And they're saying that the biggest influence is the children friend. And so you have to know the children friend. You have to know when to tell them. For instance, like we have a big thing in knowing the children. We want to know your friends. We want to know who you're talking to. We want to know the friends' parents. We want to know stuff, right? So we sometimes we just like invite them to something that we have at our house, or sometimes we go to if we can go to this stuff to see what is going on in their home. We want to see stuff, and so in that way it gauge you, and it could help you to make a decision concerning the children, if they should be hanging out with that friend or if they should be spending time at that environment. Forget about TV. We didn't have a TV for many years in our home. We had one, and it was in my room, and we don't even turn on the television. And so for years, the kids was grow up without a television. Like now, it's now lately they start watching TV. And you were talking about the Becca program on Woman of God, right? About homeschooling. Like homeschooling, we homeschool our kids up until some of them went into middle school, right? And it did well for them. There's so many different methods we can use to bring some discipline to our children, because there's so many contamination out there. We're talking about friends. Talk about the teachers. There's some stuff that some of these teachers be teaching these kids is very, very alarming. And like the thing that you don't believe in, and these kids are exposed to these teachers.
Everything. Every,
And like you're talking about sex and all that stuff like that. Kids at the age of, we talking about 4 years old in pre-K, some of the discussion these kids be having, it's very, 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 very alarming. And so I know I went off a topic there, but we want to use this opportunity to, when you don't discipline your kids when you're angry. And our next thing we should say, what is the cutoff point when it comes to discipline? At what age do you think you should stop spanking?
I don't think there is a cutoff point. You know, I mean, I gave my one son, he got his last spanking at 17 because my rule is as long as you live in my house, okay, and you are a child in my home and you don't work and you don't pay bills, then I'm going to spank you if you cannot listen. Now, I think that our job is to try to win their trust and to get them away from spanking. I don't think my mom and my dad had to spank me past high school. By the time I got to high school, I got it. I was like, okay, but if you're cutting up in school, I'm going to spank you. And that's just the rule. But I wanted to say something too. If you are doing more spanking and not, and
Yeah.
it's important. I agree with what Pastor Paul said. You want to see your children want to see you if you're in a marital relationship. Now, if you're a single parent, you should be hugging and loving your children. There should be, just like you're showing them discipline, you should also be showing them love. And if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to embrace them and you're not able to speak kind words to them and all of those things as well, that's a problem. And you may want to ask yourself why you can't do that as a parent, because you should be loving your children. You should be letting them, you should be praising them more than you're letting them know, well, you did this and you did that, because you want to win their trust as well. Sometimes children are acting out because they don't trust. They think that I think Dr. Bennett said it. If all the time you're being told that you're bad and you're doing something wrong, and you're never being praised, and you're never being told that you've done something well, and you're never being hugged and supported, then of course that child is just going to grow up. And now when the child grows up to be an angry adult.
Wow.
See,
Yeah, we
what
said something
we
earlier.
understand is we're talking about, we talked about abuse, and I think Dr. Bennett said, you have some angry grown-up people out there, but they're angry because when they were children, they were told that they weren't anything, and they were disciplined the wrong way. So now they have all of these issues. So now they have children, and the cycle just keeps going on and on and on. And when you think about children that have gone to school, and they have, I think we had several cases where you had some children that went to school and they shot up some children. It's
Mhm.
because they were being mistreated at home, and they were so abused until it built a rage up in them to where now they wanted to harm other children. So we have to be careful. We have to love our children. We have to hug our children. We have to praise our children. We have to let them know that they are safe and secure with us. But at the same time, when you are wrong, just like the Father does us, because God doesn't do us like that. He don't beat us for everything that we do. God forbid if He disciplined us every time we did something wrong. But we want to let our children know that they're safe and they're loved, so that they will understand the difference between discipline and love.
And that's good, Lady V. And I just want to add one little thing to that. It's very important, and I like what you said about God. God disciplines us. He chasteneth those that He loves. But after He disciplines us, what does He do? He wraps His arms around us and He loves on us. And we have to do the same to our children. I am going to discipline you by spanking your bottom, but I want you to know I'm doing it not because I'm angry, but because I love you. And I want you to know that it's important that you don't have a repeat of this. You have to communicate with that child. And like we said, make sure the child understands. It's nothing like a child getting a spanking and like, what did I do? Why am I doing it? You have to talk to that child. Talk back. Let them talk back to you. Ask them, why do you think you merited a spanking today? Do you think that was a good thing for you to do? You have to communicate with that child. And Pastor Tito, you asked the question, up to what age should you not spank a child? Up to what age? Up to what age should we start spanking a child? Because children, when they're young, they don't understand why you're spanking them. They just don't know. So we have to keep talking, and we just have to keep doing. We have to, because children remember more of what they see than what you say. So you have to be an example. This is not good. This is what you're supposed to do. 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, yes, at that time, they understand. Yes, they understand. No. But you have to discipline them, but you have to love them most of all, just like our Father loves us.
And love is very, very, very loving the children is very, very important. But in the Caribbean, they used to beat us, and while they're beating us, they're telling us why they're beating us. Right? They give you a long speech, and they're whooping you, and they're telling you, and they're giving you the story as to why they're doing it. But we have evolved, right, over the period of
Yes,
time
thank
in our
God.
life.
Yeah.
Thank
we
you, Lord.
we have evolved. There's some things that we used to do that we do them no more because we have learned. I try to maintain some of my old ways and also incorporate it into the incorporate some new ways. And one of the ways that we try to deal with the children is communication. Is spending more time talking, and when you're not, if they're not getting to be talking, then maybe you can apply the corporal punishment. But we do a lot of talking, especially my older daughter. My gosh, she was one of those girls that just have to say it. There are some kids that just have to say something. They cannot just listen. She have a word for everything that you say. And so she got a lot of talking. But then my wife is less tolerant in terms of kids talking back and stuff like that. And so like one day she just my wife and my daughter get home around this time. You have to be home at 3 o'clock, and she was just acting, oh no, I can't come home around that time, because I have I it's too long for me to, and all kind of things she started to say. And so one day she came home 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4:30. Where were you? Well, I was feeding the ducks, right? And my wife gave her a whooping. And the person that couldn't, she's like 17, 16 or something like that. The person that couldn't get home at 3 o'clock came home 20 minutes earlier, right? And so kids would try to test you. They would try to push you. They would try to do everything in their power to see how far, how much they're going to get away with. And so it is our responsibility as parents to continue to guide them. There are various kind of we talking about corporal punishment, right? But there's something that we do, like we curse in front of the kids, we
Mhm.
drink in front of the kids. There are all kind of abuse you can talk about, like drinking in front of the kids and doing all kind of, expose them to all kind of crazy stuff that is
Yeah.
very abusive in nature and that can mess with them mentally.
Right.
But we're not even going to even talk about that. But my encouragement to you, if you're going to discipline them, if you're going to apply corporal punishment, I don't believe in abuse. Don't leave any mark on the skin. Don't leave any mark on the skin, which means you cannot use any broomstick, any switch, things that will bring any harm to them.
Ironing cords.
Ironing cords, yeah.
Irons.
I run out I can give you a long list that I was
Me
beaten with,
too.
you know, and but now I thank my mother for, because she only do what she know, right? She only
Yeah.
did what she know, and we turn out to be fine. Thank God for her. Thank God. But as I sit back and I look back at certain things, I'm like, man, that was abuse, you know, and that was really abuse. That wasn't no, but we God disciplined us because He loves us. Amen. He loves us. That's why He disciplined us. People that don't love you will not would not
That's
would not talk to you, would
right.
not would not try to encourage you or discipline you, would not try to train you because they don't love you. But the
Mhm.
fact that I have a joint family. My wife and I, we have my kids and our kids, and so I have a joint family. And so in having a joint family, we have different characters that shows up in the relationship. And time and time after, I had to show love I had to show my stepkids, for instance, that I love you guys. I didn't just come for one other reason, but I came because I love you and I want to show, I want to be a father. I want, and then there are different aspects of being a daddy, and you show them what it's to be a daddy, and you go through the entire stuff. So it's not only about beating, it's about communicating, it's about loving, telling your kids them I love you. It's about affirmation, right? Giving them affirmation. It's a whole lot of things that apply. You can use when it comes to the kids. Like my son, I used to tell him when he do bad in school, and he always making trouble in school. I used to tell him who he is, right? I would go on the internet. I would say, "This is your grandfather. This is this person. This is that person. This is who they are. This is who you are." And I try to tell him who he is as an individual, you know, and and then I try to build him up over the period of time. Now he's 21. When he come home from the military, he's in the military right now. When he come home from the military, guess what? You have to do chores like everybody else. You have
Mhm.
to wash the dishes. He has to sweep the house. Whatever my wife tells them to do, that's what they got to do. We still do the same thing, and they do it with no problem.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
God
Well,
bless you guys. So one closing remark, Dr. Yvonne.
sorry.
One closing remarks if you have a remarks to
I
tell
would
us.
like to say, make sure when it comes to children, love is definitely the key. You have to love them, communicate with your child, be transparent with your child. Don't have that agenda where everything is a secret, because children today, they can find out who their mama or daddy was before they got saved, or before the children even came into the world. So be open with them. Let them know that you did make mistakes when you were growing up, and and you want to try to keep them from making the same mistakes. Be honest with them, but most of all, love them. Keep that open communication so they won't be afraid to come to you when something happens in their life.
Lady V, you remind me of a Caribbean, one of those Caribbean parents. So let me go with you. I was talking to you the other day, and I'm like, wow, she remind me of one of those Caribbean parents. Go ahead.
I'm I'm gonna say be an example. Again, just being in the school system and raising four children, be an example. Model what you say so that your children will earn a respect for you. When they see you are doing what you're supposed to be doing as a parent, a lot of times they'll respect you. And even when you have to spank them, they know that you mean them well. So I would say model what you want them to become. Be
Yeah,
good models.
that's
Be
right.
good models.
That's right.
Amen. Be good moms, be good dads.
Yep.
Amen. And be a model, for your children. And someone said beating is a poor form of communication. Okay. Okay. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
Love
for
you
tuning
back.
in. Thank you
You.
for tuning in to Kingdom Empowerment Guyana. We on every Wednesday at 5 p.m. sharp. That's every Wednesday at 5 p.m. sharp. This is where we have discussion and we focus upon the family. We have all kind of discussion. You never know what you're gonna get on any given Wednesday. So we on every Wednesday on Caribbean Power Jam, and we on RTH 2000 Radio, POP TV, and all of the various platforms. We want to personally thank each and every one of you, and I do hope that you learned something here today. Amen. And remember, when you're angry, don't be the kid.
That's right.
Don't try to discipline your child when you're angry, because
Amen.
we
Amen.
do so many foolish things when we're upset. So I encourage you, just sit back, relax, and just deal with it after the fact when you calm down, so you can you can do it in love and not
That's right.
be abusive to them. Amen. And so also we have um every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Give them the name of the show, Dr. Yvonne.
Breaking the silence.
Breaking the Signs.
Yes.
Breaking this
Breaking the silence.
breaking the
You have
silence.
a voice.
Breaking the
Breaking the
silence.
silence. You
Breaking
have
the
You
silence.
have a voice.
Yes, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. right there on Caribbean Power Jam. Good afternoon, you're on the air. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
hello.
Hello? Yes, I guess Yes, so thank you guys very much. We love you. We appreciate you, Tata. And don't forget to tune in next Wednesday for Breaking the Silence at 4 and Kingdom Empowerment at 5 p.m. sharp. Tata, do have a blessed and a wonderful day. Tune in this Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. for the early morning vibes with Pastor Tito Paul and Dr. Ian Grief. Lady V, thank you guys very much. Dr. Yvonne, thank you very much. Really
Bless.
appreciate it. We had a wonderful
Bless
time. All of
everybody.
you on social media, we want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all the participation. Thank you for all the comments that you have been making. Thank you guys very much. Do have a blessed and a wonderful evening. The Lord bless you. God bless.
God bless.